Back. You're watching Roundtable, and we are with Mr. Ravi Fernando, the CEO of Slintech and also the focal point of the United Nations Global Compact Sri Lankan Network. So, starting from where we stopped, Mr. Fernando.
Okay, so I think we stopped at the point of you actually suggesting there are three key aspects.
Yeah, we were asking about the global agenda on sustainability.
Correct.
And I was also asking how actually the businesses can align themselves with the global agenda on sustainability, for which Mr. Fernando also said that it is the three bottom lines that are the key, that is the economic and social and environmental sustainability. And he was actually saying if the businesses played the part that way, the world would have been a wonderful place. And that is exactly why there was an emergence of the global sustainability movement, because of the need to attend to these causes.
Absolutely.
So also, if you look at it from a nation's perspective, what kind of impact will it have on the nation, that is the global sustainability agenda?
Great. Today, there is a global rating for responsible nations. And increasingly, the countries that have embedded the triple bottom line governance principles into how it runs the country are the ones that are getting ranked right up on that list. Now, so let me just give you some examples of countries that have really embraced the triple bottom line agenda and are increasingly moving forward in that. Now, if you take some of the European nations, if you take the Scandinavian countries, they have pretty much been the forerunners in the sustainability movement. And today, the level of sophistication in terms of European countries managing environmental sustainability issues, you know, things like recycling, the whole concept of managing individual carbon footprints, managing the household's carbon footprints. These are now part and parcel of the European community, most of the European community countries. Now, besides having environmental sustainability fully ingrained, in terms of economic sustainability, one obviously needs to be sensitive to the economic development of a country, but do so in a sustainable manner. And I can see that country after country are beginning to realize some of the mistakes they have made in the past. I mean, if you think of some of the development that has happened in lots of countries, I mean, they probably flattened the whole ground and then concreted the place, and now some of those countries are having serious issues. So you need to have some green cover in every country. And recently I had the fantastic opportunity of working with the Singapore Green Parks Board. And one of the amazing things that Singapore has achieved in a very short period of time is that today you'll be surprised to know that 42.7% of Singapore is green cover. Now, this is whilst the population has almost increased 60% at the same time. So people, you know, have this myth that, you know, you cannot achieve growth and economic development without, you know, having a huge negative impact on the environment. Now, here's a country that is achieving both, because their populations have grown from 3.8 to, I think, about 5 odd million. But at the same time, their green cover has gone from about 20 odd % to 42%. And these guys are focused because they have a sustainability mindset.
And that brings me to another question, Mr. Fernando. Actually, this is a critique of the sustainability movement and sustainability concept, because you were referring to population growth as well. I wanted to find out. There are the school of thought also that says that sustainability is a masquerade or a facade that is used to basically control population, so to say. Is there any comment on that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I mean, every country must understand three things. It must understand its resources, it must understand the capacity it has, and last but not least, it must obviously manage the whole need for consumption based on the resources they have. I mean, David Ricardo talked about diminishing returns of you know, any resource. And I think there is one of the things that have happened, unfortunately, is there has been a huge consumption pattern led especially in the West, which is totally unsustainable. And today we are beginning to see that if the level of consumption that is prevalent in the United States and Europe, if that same level of consumption starts trickling down in terms of goods and services and how people live, lifestyles, to Asia. Asia, as you know, is about 3 billion people, and India and China alone is about 2.5 billion people. Now, if you take these two populations, and if the middle income groups in these two populations rise from poverty into very top level middle income and start consuming at the level of the West, the statistics show us that you will need 3 planets to sustain the world. And one of the things, I think, one of the things that have to happen if we are to look at a sustainable world going forward is the West has to increasingly understand that they have to look at their consumption habits and scale back their consumption habits, because they have absolutely, in most situations, overconsumed. In the developing world and the emerging markets of the world, people have to be educated to consume more sustainably.
So if you look at it from Sri Lanka's perspective, now we spoke about the global framework, so to say, the global agenda, and also the global mindset of the leaders, and also creating stakeholder value as opposed to shareholder value. So applying this in the context of Sri Lanka and also being the focal point of the United Nations Global Compact, can you illustrate some best practices?
In Sri Lanka?
In Sri Lanka.
Okay. First and foremost, I must say that in the last 3 to 5 years, I've seen a huge sensitivity and resurgence in how Sri Lanka handles environmental issues. And I think all credit to our current environmental minister. I think I can see that there's a whole new movement that is emerging and a sensitivity to the issues. And if one looks at one of the biggest reasons Sri Lanka will be sustainable in the future is the global water scarcity mapping that has been done shows us that in the year 2000 and by the year 2015 and going forward to the year 2025, most of the southern hemisphere countries in the world will not have water. Will have huge physical water shortages and also economic water shortages. So physical water shortages means you hardly have water to drink. Economic water shortage means you will not have water to do industry. Now, thanks to great leaders of the past and kings of the past of Sri Lanka, and I always say that the first environmental law was written by a Sri Lankan king who actually said that no drop of water that falls on Sri Lanka, on the earth, must flow back to the sea without it being utilized. Devanampiya. Now, I think what we have to thank him for is he created the whole network of rainwater harvesting, as somebody might call it today. But what he did was, with all the tanks that he developed, we now have a robust water collection system. And as a result of that, going even into 2025, Sri Lanka has an abundance of water. And I always believe that this is the first and most important advantage Sri Lanka will have going forward. Because if you have water, then your agricultural practices and your agro-value-added businesses can actually thrive. And so what are some of the best practices? I would say there are companies in Sri Lanka who are, if I look at triple bottom line, excelling in different aspects of the bottom line. I mean, recently I read an article in the papers of Brandex, who is talking about the whole concept of measuring their carbon footprint. Now, I think this is a huge first for Sri Lanka, because not too many companies in the world who talk about sustainability and who speak about this subject actually go out there and talk and measure